Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello, and thank you for watching.
Welcome to 2025,
the glorious
baby.
year. Finally.
We're here.
We did it.
Yay.
The world's fixed and everything's fine.
What an amazing last 6 weeks since you last heard us.
Wow, man. What hasn't happened? What happened and what hasn't happened? They're the two big questions.
I'll tell you what, a bunch of stuff did happen and a bunch of
some
stuff didn't happen.
And
the stuff that did happen was good or
great.
bad.
Some of the stuff that happened was great.
Yeah.
Until we found out bad things about the great.
Do you remember when we all got excited about that thing?
And then now it turns out that thing's bad.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
What about that celebrity that we all love that we found out it was doing horrible things behind the scenes?
I guess we should have suspected.
Not him, though, or her.
Or them.
Or them.
That's fine. Everyone
can be horrible. That's the thing. Being a scumbag doesn't discriminate.
Yeah, I guess that's because we're very modern. We understand that all people can be horrible. Yeah. Horrible.
And if the longer you live, the more chance you are
to be disappointed.
Yeah.
By everybody.
Uncovered to be the villain.
Yeah.
You either live long enough
to
be, die a hero or live long enough to get cancelled.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, welcome to 2025. What a great year. Probably going to be the best year ever, I reckon.
It's got a good ring to it, 2025. 2024 just seemed a bit like...
Isn't it amazing,
It's like the Wednesday of years. Hump year.
I don't want to start...
2025.
I don't want to start becoming one of those remember the old days, but...
Let's do it.
Remember the old days? No, we were going to party like it was 1999. The year 2000 seemed like the distant future.
Yeah.
And now we're quarter of a way.
We would watch movies in which the future would be the 90s, the late 90s.
Movies we grew up watching, the future is now the past.
Yes.
We're a quarter of the way through this century.
Nirvana are further away from us than when we were kids and our parents were listening to the Beatles.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense?
Nope.
Okay. Nirvana now are an older act to kids today than the Beatles were for us in the 80s.
Oh, okay. So when we were growing up and this is like old person's music.
Like your parents listening to the Beatles. Like,
it was a closer gap than it is to Nirvana and 90s, today.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, that's horrible.
And the Beatles is like Bing Crosby to kids today.
Oh, the Beatles. But one of them's still alive.
I know. He's not Bing Crosby.
Two of them
Bing
still
Crosby used
alive.
to beat his children, I believe.
Sorry.
And from what I can tell, Paul McCartney's a great dad.
No, you just live long enough.
Oh, yeah.
And
something
everyone
will come
finds out that you beat your children.
Yeah, he beats his carrots before he has his vegetarian lasagna.
Yeah, he's vegetarian, but it's because he hates vegetables.
Yeah, he loves
That's why he eats them.
I mean, is there a world...
Uh-huh.
Okay, you're a vegetarian.
Yes.
And scientists discover...
Or am I still 6 weeks later in the future?
Oh, because...
We're recording this. I mean, everybody knows. We're bulk recording this. Welcome to 2025, but we are recording
What's
this...
the silliest
on December the
thing
1st.
we can say that's going to immediately obsolete by the time people hear this? We're recording this December 1st, and by the time people hear this, this is already... out of date.
All Donald Trump's picks for his cabinet got through and been ratified.
The economy is booming.
Yeah,
he's turned over a new leaf. He's embraced a unity ticket, and everyone's happy with it.
I think that. I mean, it's the 1st of December as we record this, but it is now the year 2025. We are in the future. I mean, there is a possibility that in a month and a half, I could have started eating meat again. People start eating meat again.
Yeah, Gemma was a vegetarian for like almost a decade before I met her. Then I got her eating meat.
Yeah, I was at a concert with her. I hated what just happened then. I hated that. I just really hated that.
Actually, it wasn't me. It was a dirty... It was outside a nightclub. It was a dirty, bloody hot dog van. She broke her vegetarianism on a hot dog.
On a hot dog?
I know.
Street meat.
And she loved
That's
it.
what she went for. She wanted some
pigeon.
Dirty street meat.
Pig guts and
like,
pigeon.
What is this? Welcome back.
What do you think if you were going to be tempted back into
Oh,
carnivorous?
yeah. I have thought about this occasionally. I'm like, what would it be that got me back? And if I was going to
Meat
go
pie,
back, like if I was
hamburger?
going to have like a purge, like if we were going to have the vegetarian purge, so one day
Oh,
a
the
year.
vegetarians get to go nuts. Fucking eat
It's not a
whatever
bad
animal they
idea,
want.
is
That's
it?
a really good
Yeah,
idea.
right? You can have it for any group that is not allowed to like do something or eat something or whatever, but you have like the purge day.
Yeah.
Because that's actually isn't that the term for like eating too much and then
Binge. No, binge ate.
binge eat, but then don't you
I've heard when you vomit.
you purge when you vomit? So
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
have the literal purge, right? Where you just eat all the foods that you don't normally eat on that day. What would I eat? And how much meat would I eat on that day?
Would you go like top, like Wagyu sort
Yeah.
of top shelf, or would you go dirty, like gem, hot dog?
Yeah. Gee, what do I miss?
Because I think there's in some parts, like as a meat eater, a lot of the joy, like I'm not often eating like the finest,
No.
but it's the shittiest stuff. Like meat pie is good.
You know what I'd like?
What?
I know this might sound like a terrible answer to this, but fish and chips. I think I would like some some because you can have.
Do you still go to fish and chip
Yeah.
shop? Yeah, okay. But
So
what do
I
you
think
just
this
get
is why the
potato
one that I
based?
immediately like think about is like, you know what? I know I still eat this. Some of the other meat foods, I've moved away from ever eating that style of food again. So there's no sort of inbuilt desire of, but I will still get stuff at the fish and chip shop, and I always feel like I'm not quite getting the full joy of what this experience is. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that I would just go like, go and get like a fisherman's basket, like fish and chips.
And would it be like flake, or would you go like fancy fish?
Don't think I need fancy fish at that stage.
No, because just
Whatever your standard at whatever you put in your fisherman's basket, I just have that. No alterations.
Okay,
I'll
so
try
some
everything.
crab sticks,
Crab sticks,
dim sims.
calamari.
How did dim sims get into the fish and chip thing? Because I went and had a fisherman's basket about a month ago, and they threw a dimmy in. I'm like,
I don't reckon I would eat a dim. I think like dim sim style meat wouldn't. I'd still feel like that would.
yeah, cabbage and pork. You don't need that shit.
No, I don't think that would be my first foray.
What about
into,
bacon?
There would have been a period of time in my life where it would have been bacon that got me back, but not anymore. But I
Okay.
do like the idea of like a Christmas pork like crackle.
Oh,
I mean, I like a banh mi,
Oh yeah,
and I must admit, on days when I'm going in getting my like vegetarian salad banh mi, when everybody's getting their like pork rolls topped with like pork crackling, that I think that probably would taste pretty awesome if I was like, so maybe something like that.
What about like when they're doing those lab sort of ethically
Yeah.
lab grown meat, so there's no animal being slaughtered? Would you be tempted to eat that? If they, because the sort of food you're talking about is sort of it's junky kind of meat, right? Like you could easily swap in an Impossible burger or Impossible fish or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's sort of not going to be a significant difference. But then there's lab grown meat, so this is fish,
Yeah, so it's
grown from fish
completely
DNA.
it's ethical.
Yep. And then it turns out that the meat has
Feelings.
Feelings.
Like
Doesn't want to
actually
get eaten.
better feelings.
more complex,
More
it's
complex.
very sensitive. It's a very
Highly-
sensitive
it's
state.
actually a higher
form of intelligence. It's not weighed
But
down by the
delicious.
burden. Yeah, the
Yeah.
smarter it is, the more delicious it is.
It not only understands morality, but is good moral.
Yeah.
like
And actually has plans for the future, how to build a better society.
the reason it tastes so good is because of its future aspirations.
It's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the restaurant at the end of the universe, the meal that comes out and tells you which part of it is the most delicious.
Yeah, it has a sentence that adds extra level of. They used to think there was only 5 different senses you could get from food, but there's a 6th. It's called empathy. Can you taste the umami and the empathy balanced against each other? It's delightful.
So would you eat lab grown meat? Because there's people who are like, oh no, fucking it's wrong and
What's the arguments against it? I must admit I haven't really
I
explored.
think the argument at the moment is it's we haven't tested it enough.
Yeah,
But
okay.
let's say that it has been tested, and it's like, because you don't know, like obviously there's been centuries of knowledge of what a grass fed beef would what
okay.
it produces, but steak grown in a lab. But let's just say they've done all the testing. There's been human trials, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh no, it provides all the kind of nutrients and minerals and proteins and stuff like that. There's no side effects, and it tastes relatively like 95% the same. You can, if you're a real connoisseur, you can probably taste the difference. But if you're average Joe or Jill, they won't be able to tell the difference.
I don't think that I would go out of my way to eat it.
Because you're not dying, because you've weaned yourself off meat,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So I don't think that I would, but on that special occasion, if I, like,
Go to a
so sometimes
barbecue.
when I go to a banh mi place, most of the time I would just get like a salad banh mi. But occasionally one of the places I go to does like a faux, like, other things.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I will have like that version. And I've got to be honest with you, most of the time when I make that call, I'm like, I didn't actually want this. Like, I like the version that I normally have.
I'm not sure if it still exists. There used to be a vegan restaurant, Chinese restaurant.
I know the one you mean. It was
White Lotus?
yeah.
Is it called White Lotus?
Yeah. Was it Chinese? Or was it
Chinese, wasn't it? Or was
Yeah,
it was definitely Asian.
It was Asian influence for
Asian
sure.
influence, but it was all fake meats.
Yeah, all fake meats.
And their crispy duck,
Yeah.
I reckon, is better than real crispy duck. It doesn't
Yeah.
taste like duck. It tastes like its own thing.
Yeah, that's
But it
right.
was so good. I remember that was like,
Yeah.
I'd just go there for the crispy duck.
Yeah, it tasted so good though that you were like, nah,
What is in
I
this?
don't know, this
It's
can't be
MSG.
right.
It's
Whatever
something-
this is not right. And so, yeah, I mean, I think in those rare circumstances, I would go, oh yeah, all right. But like you said, there's Beyond Meat and stuff now, and I don't go out of my way to use those things. Like it's processed, and I think you'd be worried about that lab grown meat that it's like,
What are the hormones that have been injected
what's been
into it?
processed, right? Like it is processed food, even if it's grown in a, or isn't it? No, maybe it's not.
See, this is where I get confused about
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff, because I know there's that kind of movement against GMOs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is it GMO? No. Genetically modified. Is it GMO or GMF? I don't know. Genetically modified
You
foods.
thinking about GMB?
No, I just burped into
Okay, great. It's a new podcast now. Welcome to 2025. We burp now. It's okay. We're allowed to burp.
Yeah, we're turf warriors.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
that from 6 weeks ago?
Yeah. We barely remember it from 2 hours ago.
Yeah, because I've heard arguments for and against, and this is part of the problem with the world right now. It's like, well, what do you believe?
Or is
Because-
it? Maybe all that's been fixed in the 6
Oh yeah, in
weeks
the
we've been
future,
off
we've
air.
all agreed. The world's
Yeah.
come together and agreed
Yeah.
that this is this is regular. There's not misinformation. This is widely agreed upon facts, and there's no longer disinformation.
What if, in the period of time between when we did our final episode last year and now, shit has kind of worked itself out, but when we come back, it starts to tear apart again, like bit
It's
by bit,
us.
and it turns out it's us. We're the problem.
Right. So for the world
It's
to
me.
be,
Hi, we're the problem. It's me. Right? Like so,
Yeah.
and it turns out. So then we just stop, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's well, okay. Everything's going to be all right if we
Well, I'm
just
just
stop
saying.
podcasting.
There's no. I mean, that's. I think that we would in
Happily.
that circumstance we would just go, oh well, it's been a good run.
But how do we know it's not just a scam by another podcasting
to
team
take us down?
To take us out.
Yeah,
it's
true.
like they trick us. Like,
Because it does
we
feel
find
like
out we're in a virtual reality pod, and then we're hooked up to a machine that's telling us that this is the reality, when in fact we're just being taken out by Carl Chandler because he's trying to get people on board the Ding Dong Club.
I mean, that would be really great, wouldn't it? If like it turns out that podcasting was more like Highlander rules.
that's
And there can only be one podcast at the end, and then we have to just like take each other down one by one.
I mean, it does feel like that. I mean, this is the thing. Let's get a meta again. Why not kick off the year? Let's have a meta conversation about what is TOFOP.
2025 is the year of Meta.
Is it?
Yeah,
Why?
it's the official year of Meta.
Is that like the Facebook meta? Is that what you're talking about?
No, Meta. Like
The concept of
the concept of
being
Meta.
self-referential. Right.
Yeah, 2025 is the Meta year.
Okay, great. Well, this podcast is perfectly suited for that, because everyone has a podcast now. We understand that.
Yep.
And generally speaking, very successful kind of influencers or, content creators, the podcast is merely one tool in their arsenal.
Just one.
Yeah. Whereas we have
two tools.
only got the podcast.
This is all we have.
We don't leverage anything else.
No.
We don't use it to maximize anything else. And I think there is a purity to that which needs to be acknowledged. So if it was a Highlander style situation,
Yeah.
I feel like that's our fucking advantage is we were born in the darkness.
Yeah,
that's
right.
all we know.
Yeah.
So these other fucking
You don't
podcast
know. You weren't
posers,
there.
they're not real fucking podcasts. This is like when the podcasting boom happened 5 years ago, and it's like, oh yeah, Obama, he's a podcast,
Yeah.
fucking whatever, he's a podcast, and then
Yeah. Where's Obama's podcast now?
where's it now?
Didn't last.
Didn't
have the staying power.
Oh, you need $1 million a season to do your podcast.
Oh, mate, we've never made $1 million, and we're still doing it 14 years later. You can't hang out with Bruce Springsteen for $1 million? Loser. I mean,
Loser.
seriously.
Totally.
When it comes to podcasting, like, you can debate Obama's record as president. A lot of victories, a lot of losses, as everybody does in those sort of positions, and you can debate that until the cows come home. But here's what you cannot debate.
Shit podcaster.
Well, I mean, compared to us,
Yeah.
15 years in the game, you and I,
Do you
Obama
reckon,
couldn't last 15 months talking to Bruce Springsteen.
how would you rank success though? So
Yeah.
just say you looked at, just he did one season of his Obama podcast. What was it called? Do you know? Obama Pod? Podbama.
That's what we would
Have a
call
Yana with Obama.
it. Yana with Obama. Yeah.
Renegades, born in the USA.
Renegades born in the USA.
Is that what it was
That's
called?
A bad title.
No.
And like we're in the business of bad titles, but Renegades born in the USA.
If you looked at the data, right, and just
Yeah.
say in one season of Obama's show, he had more downloads than we've had in 14 years.
Should we rebrand our podcast to Renegades born in the AUS?
Born in the AUS.
Well, for
I know,
Australia.
I
But
get
you
it.
understand.
I
It's
know,
just-
but people are going
I
to
was
read
just-
that and go, born in the AUS?
Yeah, okay, all right.
Born in the...
Well, I just meant so that people would confuse it through typos and download our podcast instead of... Because they've got all these downloads, but no content.
Hang on.
We've got
Is that
content,
actually
but
what it's
no
called? I thought
downloads.
Mike was just joking.
No, Renegades.
No, that's what it's called.
Born in the USA.
Obama's podcast was called Renegades Born in the USA.
Yes.
That is a terrible... I thought... I mean, and now your joke makes sense now.
Yeah, oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Why the fuck did he name it that? That is... I can't think of a more corporate sort of mainstream guy than Obama. What's
Renegades. Born in the USA.
And his first guest was Bruce Springsteen.
No, it was with Bruce Springsteen.
All right, so I'm missing.
Obama
something here.
did a podcast.
Obama did a podcast
with
Bruce
Bruce
Springsteen,
Springsteen.
together.
The Renegades, who were born in the USA, hence the name.
But isn't Born in the USA like an ironic title anyway? Isn't that
Yes.
song all about the way the US let down its veterans
Yes.
and stuff? So it's a strange thing to name your podcast after.
I mean, it is. I reckon. Yeah, I feel like it
Okay,
is.
so do you think they've had? They probably have had more numbers
Of
than us.
course
in
they would
total.
have had
So
more
are they more
downloads.
successful than us?
Well, they've got. See, this is what I'm talking about. Is like they've got a huge audience, but no content, and we don't have as huge an audience, but we have so much content.
Yeah. So how do you rank
How
the
do we
success
just
of the
like?
podcast?
Can we not get those two things together? Like, can we not piggyback off the back of their audience and get them like? Maybe we could just do a deal with
Obama? We reach out to his people
and we just say, "Would you like to co-publish our
or
our feed?
drop one of our episodes into your feed?
TOFOP?
What
TOFOP
does it stand
Obama.
for? Well, taste only feces and or piss, I believe, was one title. I think I like it. We'll put it in there.
TOFOP.
But
Yeah, how would you rank the success of the podcast?
because is it?
ours is still going, theirs isn't still going. We outlasted the Survivor rules. Outwit, outplay, outlast.
So we definitely got one of those two things. I don't know
Yeah.
if we'd necessarily outwit them
I think we would outwit them.
or we outplayed them. I
And
think
we
outplay
outplayed
and
them.
outlast definitely. We definitely outplayed them
Yeah.
because our show's evolved and changed, so we show we're
True.
adaptable and resourceful.
Yeah.
We're in different countries. We made that work. This year we decided to last year we decided to get in the studio. We made that work.
Mate, we talked into the
Outwit,
wrong
though.
side of the microphone. We're renegades.
You're right. We are 100%. We're the Renegades.
We're the Renegades.
Born in the AUS.
Would you like a review of Obama's podcast?
Oh,
By
yeah,
who?
absolutely.
Well, it depends. If it's like
This is by
Patriotic Son,
This is by
1,
Alex
2, 4,
Jones
6.
and Alex Jones. Goblins.
newrepublic.com.
All right.
Culture section. How did Obama and Bruce Springsteen make such a bland podcast? I wanted to like Renegades on Spotify. What went wrong?
What
I
went
mean,
wrong is
that's
you
the
didn't-
headline.
is you didn't have the Renegades from AUS.
Yeah.
We would have made it. They needed more talk about eating your own feces and, well, not your own, maybe a cow's feces.
All
and
right.
things.
It's a fresh start to the new year.
I
I know
know.
we just recorded that episode.
People are going to be,
That's
what
a
the
fresh
fuck are
start
they
to the new
talking
year.
about?
People have had so many other episodes in the feed in between when they last heard us talk about that and you referencing that.
Does it say what he was paid? I mean, I seem to remember it was like $1 million.
Oh, yeah. Is it, yeah. If we
It
can
was
find.
originally a Spotify exclusive.
Okay,
Yeah, and so they got cash. So, didn't Joe Rogan got like 150 million or something for
something.
It got over
exclusive
200 million.
for his show, and I believe they just re-upped that contract as well. So he just got another 200 million
Yeah.
for now
we
what
go.
seems to be state propaganda.
Yeah. Okay. What information have you found, Mike?
The headline is How the Obamas Took Spotify for a Ride.
Oh yeah,
Okay. That's
Spotify in
good.
2019
Why can't
signed a
we-
roughly $25 million deal with Barack and
25
Michelle.
million.
But they had the Obama started a production company, right? So it might
Yes.
not just have been for Renegades.
No,
So, let me
yes,
just
I
see.
agree, but they haven't done a lot of other stuff either.
yeah. What are they? A sitcom? What else have they got going?
Why is there never an article about how we've taken someone for a ride? I want to take someone for a ride.
Yeah.
Just once in my life, Charlie. Why can't we be the ones?
I think we
who
get.
have
I think
taken-
we get ridden
we
is
are
the
ridden.
problem.
Well, I want to be a rider, not a bike.
Yeah, how do we do that? How do we take
Yeah.
someone for a ride? I guess we've got to go to Spotify and say, "Hey, man,
Hey,
we'll
man,
bring in.
We got a great podcast.
We're a great podcast. We're
great.
going to bring
It's
in
the best podcast
millions
you've ever heard.
and millions of people, and even we're going to
Millions.
say some controversial
So
stuff,
many
but that's going to bring in
controversial things.
even
I don't like
more
mango.
people. Whoa!
There you go.
I'm not going to eat lab-grown meat.
Yeah,
How about that? How you
Yeah.
like them apples?
yeah.
They have
Did-
8 other titles on there as part of their production company.
Oh,
You wanna hear 'em?
okay. Yeah, I want to hear them. Yep.
The Wonder of Stevie.
Oh yeah, okay. About Stevie
About
Wonder.
Stevie Wonder.
No, about the Wonder
Yep.
Years, his favourite sitcom.
Stevie Nicks'
Ways to Win
favourite
with
sitcom.
Craig and Coach Cal.
Oh, okay. That'd
Ways
be
to Win. Did you
Ways
say?
to Win with
Ways to Win,
Craig
yeah.
and Coach Cal.
Who's Coach Cal?
Your Mama's Kitchen with hosted by Michelle Norris.
Okay.
Chuck Norris's wife.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle Obama's podcast is called The Light Podcast.
The light.
And the tagline, The Light Podcast.
Uh,
It dives deep into conversation with loved ones, friends, family, mentors, and her husband.
okay. It's just her and Barack catching
Yeah.
up.
+1.
Plus
Sounds
one.
like TOFOP. Michelle's TOFOP. Tell Them I Am. Not sure.
Is
what
that like
is.
a Dr. Zeus podcast? Tell them I
This
am. I
is-
am.
All these are they're so middle of the road. The
Hang-
stories are universal. Yeah.
like Obama's got, I've got an idea for a podcast. It's me and my buddy talking about movies, but the twist is we also make some jokes.
But I think that's what it was meant to be with the
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen thing. And so I was telling you, I sent you a message. This happened months ago now, but I was on The Project, the television show in Australia, and I was plugging the start of my new tour. And I was in the green room beforehand watching, they have the feed of the show that's going on, and they were having a whole panel discussion about the TV show Hunted and who out of the panel would be the best at surviving the hunters on Hunted and where they would hide and how they would hide.
And so
I
we
just-
did that a year
I
ago.
just remember I was sending you a message. I was just like, The Project is now an episode of TOFOP. We talked about this for like
But
3
does that
episodes.
mean, were they asking you? Did you get to chime
No,
in?
I wasn't on the.
Oh, right. You were just
I was
watching.
like, this is my specialist topic.
yeah. I mean, often it does
I almost
happen.
ran into the studio. I was like, I've got so much stuff on this.
I'll be living in a cave. I'm going to record cassette tapes, and that's how I won't be traced.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often do think that we're ahead of our time with some stuff. But the problem with this show is we come up with these $1 million ideas and no way of enacting them. Like, what
Well, we
need
never
is,
follow anything through.
Yeah.
What we need
But
is.
then we also forget. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is we have that, like, I'm hoping with AI, what can happen is like that it'll get to a point where it can scrub through 14 years of TOFOP and pull out all the good ideas we've had.
But then it'll just steal the good ideas.
No, bring them to us. Bring them to us, AI.
Nah, it'll be like, we're keeping these. We'll like give him one of them. They'll give
okay, how about that? So what if we agree on a commission? So you scrub through 14 years of TOFOP and you can keep 10% of the good ideas, AI, and we keep 90% of the good ideas. That's it.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is? The AI will keep all the ideas where like it's
They're
about
really, really good ideas.
Anti-AI, you know, all that stuff where it's like, these guys hate us. We've got to kill them all. We're keeping these ideas.
Start with that. But I do wonder, like, because the amount of like shows or reality shows or ideas we've come up with, like we're just a fucking ideas factory. Like, how do we go back and extract that? Because there is the Riverside now, you know, it has the technology when you record on Riverside, it generates a transcript within like 15 minutes of doing the show, and you can term search as well. So it wouldn't be that hard, I don't think, to hit upon TV, film ideas, reality shows.
I heard this
new age wellness programs.
I heard this
leans to the right
recently, where it's like a music generator, like an AI music generator, and basically you would say to it, "I want a song in the style of like
Eminem or whatever." Yeah,
that is about this.
Yeah,
and you know features this. And the AI goes away almost instantaneously and spits you back a song that sounds like any pop song that's on the radio at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And then you can give it feedback. You can say, you know, this bit I need to be a bit more, and like literally that's already a technology that exists. So is there a world in which you could go, here is this idea that we've had in it, like this sitcom about this blah blah blah, and you do this and whatever, and then you just feed all that in and you extrapolate it out into like a series or into a it doesn't feel like that is so far away now. Whether that would be any good or whatever,
studios are definitely training AI to write scripts and stuff.
But to take like to be able to go,
have you seen the Google one?
What's the Google
one? This exists. Yeah, give me a topic and I'll go away and bring you back something. Give me a couple of topics that you want a podcast to be about.
Oh, so you're literally going to like put into Google like a...
Okay, well, why don't we go back to the last episode
anything
of
from
year.
Your back catalogue?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, all right, pram sport, which is a concept I have of a private transport system where people are moved about in giant adult-sized prams.
Yeah. For comfort and for leisure, but also
luxury travel,
luxury travel for a sense of
comfort. Yeah,
and it's a business. You want to start a small business.
Yeah.
Let me go and pull the transcript of that from the episode you talked about it.
All right.
Give me 15. Then I'll come back with a podcast episode about that generated by AI. Okay. 2 people talking about that.
All right.
And I'll see how close
I'm not going to be listening for the next 15, 20 minutes. Okay.
Okay. No worries.
Mike's a real piece of shit.
He's still there.
He's a real piece of shit.
Still here for a minute. But
and also he will listen back to this.
Mike's a real good guy. And he's just swapped in a compliment with AI. Mike is a wonderful fella.
Wonderful fella.
He's a good guy.
Good guy. Mike is a good guy.
I saw Ben Affleck being interviewed at some film festival.
Ben Affleck is a good guy.
And he was being asked about AI. And he was like, sure, like you can generate the scripts and stuff, but the alchemy of what happens on set is gone. That's what people don't understand, is that's what filmmaking really is it's not, the script is the blueprint, but then when you got the cameras up and you got the actors and it's the dynamic between the actors and it's how they work with the dialogue and changes they make on the fly, that's where the real creation comes in. So he says, I can't foresee a way that changes in the immediate future.
Yeah, and until you come up with an AI app for alchemy.
Or an AI, completely AI actors.
Yeah.
100% computer generated.
No, I mean, I do think that there will be in the same way as like...
I mean, Marvel movies feel, because there's so much CGI, like they feel kind of AI already, right? They're so formulaic in their storytelling. And then those action sequences seem to be like preconceived before the story. It's like, oh, we want to have these 5 set pieces and then we'll just have a generic story to weave.
And it turns out that people get bored with that.
Yeah.
So I suspect that, yes, there might be. And that was what when I was thinking when I was listening to this AI songwriting app is, I was like, oh yeah, this will replace a lot of just that catchy poppy written to be like a phone jingle style pop song. Like it does sound like that.
Mm.
But will it then encourage, creativity to
Challenge
make things
it.
that don't sound like
Yeah.
that? I think, yes, of course, because that has been the history of how we have reacted to, like, in creativity.
Mm.
Like it does. I mean, that's not to say that there shouldn't be genuine fears for the roles, and jobs, etc., that it is going to take. But I do think, is there a world in which it becomes the authentic experience versus no? I don't think so. Or maybe it will be. Maybe it'll be the prevailing thing, but there'll still be great value in the same way as the prevailing thing is downloading your music onto an app or whatever it might be, but there is still great value in going to a concert or listening to a record. Then I guess maybe that's how we readjust.
Well,
How
like
we look at
live performance, right? That's still the thing that,
yeah.
like that's what musicians, stand up, that kind of stuff. Theatre will still be an essential kind of thing because people want that hypodermic connection with the performer and the audience, where it's like they do something and you feel a response.
Well, I would argue even more so because that we live in a world now where we don't have that communal experience anymore. There was that sense of there's 4 channels on TV and we're all
Yeah.
watching
There's
the
this
final
one
episode
blockbuster
of
coming out
MASH
this
or,
month. Yeah.
this is the movie that everybody is talking about. And there were like 10 topics and they were all part of the public zeitgeist. And now there's huge popular culture movements or eras or where everyone's like quoting a thing where you're like, this is just not on my radar at all, because we are all living in these silos of, you have to start conversations with, are you watching this show or are you? And so then to go to something like I went and saw Pearl Jam last year and I loved them. They were great. But the thing that I loved more than that was just all these people together at this thing, having this experience together. You're like, oh, I've missed this. I've missed being amongst the whole group of strangers who've come together to do something at once. Like, I went to the AFLW grand final. It was a similar sort of thing where you're like, oh, this is like, I'm not that invested in the game, but this experience is amazing because it's just a whole bunch of people going to do something together.
I do think that is a product of, like, after the pandemic, when there was a sort of, suddenly people were when they could realize they didn't have to be in the city or, go into the office to work. And so you saw like all rural areas, their populations increasing because people moved out of the cities. And the one thing that I've really appreciated about that is it's not so much like going to concerts or whatever, but the sense of community, like living in a small town. Every weekend, it feels like there is something on and there is something that brings the community together, whether it's a fete or a fair or a festival or whatever it is. And you're right, because we're so used to kind of that compartmentalized experience of, even Gemma and I won't even watch the same shows. We'll be on separate iPads watching the shows that we like. We don't even sit on the couch together and watch the same thing anymore. It's because she likes her shows, I like my shows. But we also really love getting out into the community and doing this thing together and doing it with Iona or, our neighbors or whatever it is. So maybe those two things will like, as the boutique nature or the compartmentalization of entertainment grows, also the community aspect will grow, because there'll be certain things you want to do in your bubble, but then there'll be other things where you'll crave the group experience or the crowd experience.
So I've been thinking about this a bit, which is sometimes the context of the world adds value to an experience that you're already. So I think. So I've been doing my improv. I'm doing a year of touring my improvised shows in 2025, and I've been doing those shows for over a decade now. But the world has changed in that time. As much as I have changed the way that I do the show, the world has always changed. And the context of the world, two things is that firstly, like, people do crowd work a lot, like online in particular now. And so that's become quite a bigger thing at gigs for people to talk to the audience, which is what those shows, there wasn't as much of it when I first started doing those shows.
What do you do? You two together? You a couple?
And it's everywhere online. And there was a conversation with me and my management a year ago when it was popping off online of them going, well, you do this all the time. Do you want to start filming your shows and putting it online? And I wrestled with that for ages because I was like, like I've been doing this thing for a long time. By the way, not like plenty of people did it before me, but I'm just saying
You're not
it was
boasting.
like, no, it was just more that it suddenly became a very fashionable thing and it was a thing that I was already doing. So there was a talk around whether you go, well, film it, put it online, capture this moment that everybody is part of and cash in on it. And I didn't want to, and I couldn't quite articulate why for a little while. And then I really kind of worked out in my head why it was, which was, and this is not a judgment on the people who do it, just to me and what I was trying to do in those shows was I want them to be just for the people who are there in that room that night.
Right.
The whole point of the show, the whole point of these people will never come together again.
Yeah.
And I want to make a show that is made out of the parts that we have. Like it's the mystery box on MasterChef. Here are the ingredients we have tonight, and we will make something that is complete. It might not be perfect, but it will be never replicated. We can never have these exact ingredients together again. And it's not for someone else to watch later. It's for you to enjoy right now while it's happening. And then it's done. And it's just for us
Into the ether.
and just these group of strangers who did not know each other get to come together and have this shared experience that will never again be for anyone else but just for them. And I think that's actually what I love about those shows.
Yeah.
And I think that what's happening in the world adds value to that experience and through nothing that I've done, if that makes sense. Because now everything is being shared everywhere. If you don't buy into that, you can look at it the other way, which is going, now when I put on a record, the value of putting on a record, the experience is different because I like the ritual. I like that it makes me concentrate and listen to it. Those things have been added by the rise of digital music, right? Those values that I now put on doing that aren't of the record itself. It's of the context of the world changing. And I think sometimes you think that you have to keep up with like how the world is changing when instead you could go, okay, that's where the world is going.
Yeah.
That's great because I'm not like that. I do something different to that. And that's going to actually add value to what it is that I do because it's not of the prevailing moment or trend or whatever it might be.
I think that's a discussion, or when I've been doing the Friday live streams on Patreon. So for those who don't know, if you sign up to the Patreon, I've been doing these regular Friday night live streams where it's just me talking, but you can chat with me in a live chat or chat with each other. And I was talking about this idea of finding stuff like experiences, because you're right, like when you go to see a show or a concert or whatever, everyone's pulling their phones out and you're trying to sort of catch the experience and share it with everyone else. But I think there is something to be said for that, like an event or an experience that happens that is either just for you or just for a small group of people, and then it's not sort of ruminated over or done again. And so I had this experience where, I've been trying to teach myself to become more handy.
Yeah.
And so we have this side passage at my house, which used to have a gate, but then the original owners, it's a weird thing. They made this gate themselves and it had sentimental value. So when they moved out of the house, I said, do you mind if we take this gate with us? It's like, all right, I'm not going to stand in the way of, a man and his gate. Consequently, we have this gap on the side of our house and it's not regular dimension. So I had to custom make a gate, and I have never built a fence or a gate or anything. And so at first I tried to go to Bunnings and just buy a gate, but because it's not generic sizes, I had to custom make something. And so I chatted to a few friends who are handy, is this a difficult thing to do? And then I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and then I set about making a gate for myself. And there was a temptation for me to document it, film it, make it content, and then I was like, I'm not going to do any of that. But not only am I not going to document it, but I'm also not going to listen to music while I'm doing it, or podcasts, or all the things I would normally do when I'm doing a task. I'm just going to immerse myself in this task and just experience. And also, because the second part to it is that I get really hard on myself when I'm trying something new. And if I'm not good at something first up, I get really annoyed and angry and blah. But I sort of was like, I'm just going to do this and I'm prepared for it to suck or for me to get it wrong or for me to have to make numerous trips to Bunnings because I've used the wrong bolts or screws or any of this kind of stuff. And so I just spent a couple of days building a gate by hand. And I didn't even really have all the right tools. Like I didn't have a circular saw. So I bought a hand saw. So it was real rudimentary. And I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos, worked out what I had to do, and then spent 2 days in the garage just like sawing wood, screwing it together and assembling this gate. And it was just such a pleasurable experience.
To just do it.
To just do it.
And not document it.
Not document it.
And it doesn't have to
not
be for
obsessed
anyone.
with the result.
You don't have to think about it. Because sometimes it's just nice to do something without having to ascribe to it a grander meaning or attitude. I noticed that with popular culture, in that I have just been trying to enjoy things in a bubble again, where I'm just like, what did I think? Because I'm not having to put my attitude to this out on the public record. And then it's just freed me up to just enjoy some things more, I think. Like, like read a trashy book or like, watch a movie or whatever just out of the context of the public debate around something, or feeling like you have to have a hot take it's very nice to
think
and just do without having to feel like it needs to be consumed by everybody, but also readjusting your brain to think, you know what, who cares what I think of this movie or this.
Yeah, the world doesn't need to know.
No, they don't need to know.
Yeah. And also, but it's also the process of whether it's reading a book or getting absorbed into a show or whatever, this idea that there's no outcome to it. It's the experience of it, right? Like before streaming, when video stores existed, you would go get your 5 weeklies and your 1 overnight, and you'd generally watch the whole thing, even if you weren't enjoying it. Oh, this sucks, but I want to see where it's going. And we've taken that option off the table because you don't have to, you can be impulsive and you can turn it off immediately. It's kind of nice to sort of sit in that moment again and just be like, well, I don't have the choice. I can understand why people go back to vinyl and, this sort of hipster culture, this idea of like, let's get back to more tangible processes of doing things, because there is something about, even if you take the result out of the equation, it's just, I'm going to go through this process. And I heard Paul Roos talking about it on a podcast where he was saying that he reckons failure is it's a bad word, because it really, you talk that comments on the result. It should be learnings. You go through a process, you try something. What did you learn from that? Because you either try that thing again and now you can be different or whatever. But to associate, I tried to do this thing.
The learning might be, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Next time I should
I'm bad at
ask
this.
someone else to do that on my behalf. I should pay someone to do that. That's what I learned. But that's fine. That is a learn. That instead of it being a failure, you now have the information, which is, if this ever arises again, I need to get a professional involved.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. This is not a situation I can handle by myself.
Yeah. Like me trying to change light bulbs.
Yeah,
or
which is not a
replace light
failure.
sockets.
It's a learning.
It's a learning.
Yeah.
But I do love that idea of, you just involve yourself in something, and like it's just move on from that too. Like you don't have to ascribe any kind of major like opinion or life-changing thing. It's just a thing
sometimes
that you go
can
through
just
that is-
experience something without rating it.
Yeah.
I think that's the real thing, which is like, I've noticed that the more that I have like just got out of that idea of having to broadcast what it is that you've watched, liked, etc., the more I've just gone, yeah, that was like, I haven't seen anything that I regretted, because then you suddenly don't have to, sometimes you can just go, yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And then just never think about it ever again.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fine.
Which is like 90% of the stuff.
A lot of stuff,
you
right?
watch these days, right? It's like you watch it and like, I know I saw that thing, but I can't remember anything about it.
I was thinking about this the other day where I was like, oh, geez, I've listened to a lot of good new music recently. Like mostly it's, to be honest, new music by bands that I've liked for a long time. But it seems to me like a lot of those bands have made some of the best work that they've made in a really long time, and I've really been enjoying it. And I wonder, because like sometimes I've had someone else say, oh, I didn't really love that album as much as like you seem to like it or whatever. And I was like, I think that I've become a little less critical. Like, I do think that I'm a bit more like, I like this. I'm not trying to examine it on the level of like you would if you were doing a critique.
Yeah.
Like, it's like eating a meal and going, like, oh, I think the salt and the sweet is balanced wrong in this, blah, blah, blah. Instead, I'm going, that's pretty yummy.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's also the compulsion to, from the creative side, to, like, I listened to this interview with Noel Gallagher where he was talking about like regrets or whatever, and he said that
I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention.
he was talking about when they broke in the States, Morning Glory, was a big global smash, and he said that they hit the States and it was a complete clusterfuck. The band essentially broke up or they just went in their different directions, and they had pressure on the record company and they felt their own pressure. Well, got all this momentum and everyone loves this album.
Yeah.
And so they rushed into the studio and did Be Here Now, which is like the album that sucked. And he said what he learnt from that was that Morning Glory was a big hit and everyone loved it. They just needed to sit with that.
Yeah.
And he said the thing was they felt this need to arrest that momentum and make Hey While the Sun Shines is gone, but they didn't have the songs to make a new album. But they just sort of felt like, oh, we're on this roll. And he said if they had just sat with that and not pulled out another album, it would have been so much better for the career because they wouldn't have had this pressure and they wouldn't have been fighting because they're trying to record songs. And he said, like, most of America didn't even really know who they were or had really discovered Morning Glory, the couple of songs, but they could have easily coasted on that for like 2 or 3 years. In the meantime, he could have taken his time to think about new songs, but there was this kind of pressure to kind of to capitalize on that momentum. And I think it's sort of part of the same conversation, right? Like, there's no harm in just allowing things to breathe and let it play out. Certainly not financially for them. Like, that he was doing fine. They didn't have to make more money.
I have spoken like a lot recently, and I think, the reason I've spoken a lot recently about it is that, sometimes you say things out loud in the hope that you will,
Manifest.
or at least be held accountable to the things that you've said out loud. But I've been trying to move my career more in the direction of like spending more time on the things that I really am passionate about. In particular, stand up. And part of it is not just the very act of like doing, because when I'm doing other things, I can still do shows. I can still write a show. But what I can't do is have time to like indulge my creativity or to spend a day thinking about an idea or like to spend like, weeks filling up your cup so that you have new or interesting or different things to take that time to go, I'm going to take 3 months where I just don't like write, but it's like,
You're absorbing.
I do something,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? Like I've never really had that sort of time. And you do think in this world where you're like, it is so ultra, there's so many demands on like, oh, well, why don't you make a documentary about that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you film that? Like, and we are caught up in that infrastructure as well. Like we're making a podcast that, also is filmed and is like being clipped and like, or doing all these things. But if everybody's caught in this like
Constant output mode.
right, like you don't even have time to.
What are you talking about?
Right.
What are you absorbing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking, but what are you saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I know
that's
this
the trap
podcast
of commercial radio, right? Like,
Yeah.
isn't that kind of part of the challenge of doing like what you were doing, like a morning show? Is that like, well, we've got to have something to talk about every day, but is there stuff to talk about?
Well, what I realized was that because I would try to still do some things so that at least if you do something, you have something to talk about. But when somebody asked me, do you have any like personal anecdotes, I'd be like, yeah, I can tell you about the Uber ride between
the
TV
studio.
show and the studio. Do you know what I mean? Like but yeah, I can tell you about that 4-hour delay I had at the airport the other day. But no, there's no other bits in between.
Yeah. I mean, even with this show, like the way the format changed in the last 12 months of we record once a month as opposed to every week. Like, I think that was extremely useful because we could actually live a life and do some things and have some thoughts. And occasionally I would jot something down. I'm like, oh, that'd be interesting to talk about. Or because obviously there's so many topics that come up in my mind that I'm like, there's only one man I can talk to about this. No one else will entertain this thought I'm having right now.
I went to so many middle-aged concerts at the end of last year so I went to Pearl Jam Pixies. I went to Hoodoo Gurus. A lot of crossover between those two audiences. Coldplay, that's a bit more mixed.
Yeah.
Coldplay. Tom York. I went to see Tom York as well. Frenzal Rom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I went to see Frenzal Rom at the Corner Hotel, and
That's fucking really
their crowd was still so into Frenzal Rom. There was crowd surfing. It was like
broken
real.
hips.
Yeah, like I was like, because that some of the other ones, even at like Pearl Jam and stuff, like you were like, yeah, these are middle-aged people.
Yeah.
You know. Whereas, like at Frenzal, they were like middle-aged people who were having a big night out.
So I'm interested because I haven't seen Pearl Jam since a big day out in like
10 years ago.
Yeah,
10 plus years ago.
And so is it still the same energy like when they're doing
Better.
kind of right?
I
okay.
reckon it was better than last time they were here because that
Right.
big day out tour was a bit of a mess. It was the
last
final
one,
year of the
right?
big day
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and the crowds weren't. Anyway, this was great. Like, and the show I went to at Marvel apparently was the biggest show they were doing on the whole tour, so they certainly had like an energy to them. But it was the energy of the crowd, the
Right.
fact that they hadn't been out for a decade, and Pearl Jam have some pretty hardcore fans, and they were like, just being like there was guys just singing every word
Yeah, right.
to every song, like, and it was like 3 hours. It was, I told you yesterday when we were, months ago,
Yesterday.
when we were
6 weeks ago.
doing our live show, that I had my phone in my back pocket and I was tapping my leg, like, while I was like sort of to Pearl Jam, but like literally kind of just jiggling one leg. That was about my only dance move. And I did 9,000 steps on my phone.
Of shuffling.
Which is also the most middle-aged man thing to go, I went to Pearl Jam, got my steps in.
I remember hearing a rumor once, and I can't remember because I've seen Pearl Jam a few times, but there was a rumor once that Eddie Vedder wouldn't play Black live because it was too personal or something. Did he play on this
Didn't play
tour?
Black at mine. Yeah, he did.
Did he
He
play
played it on
Black?
the Monday night.
Okay,
Yeah.
so-
They play it regularly.
Okay, right. Yeah, I don't know where I heard that rumor and I couldn't remember of the many times I've seen them if I've ever seen him play Black. I think
I
just
have,
an
but
urban myth that I just kind of absorbed and accepted.
The lineup, I mean, they played 3 hours of songs and you can't complain. They played like so many big hits, but they did not play Black, which is my favorite Pearl Jam song. They did play it on the Monday, which is the one I didn't go to. They brought out a guest. Did you hear who their guest was in Melbourne?
No.
Okay, this is fun. So,
Is it one of his not regular guests? Like he's mates with Neil Finn and
no, this
it
is not
wasn't.
a musician.
Oh.
Even though this person brought out a guitar, but he's not a musician.
Scott Morrison with the ukulele.
It was not former Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Can't find a better man, they say. Which we were like, well, the other one was Tony Abbott. So
Yeah.
we were right. We couldn't. So in Victoria, so this was in Melbourne. I went in Melbourne. It was Saturday night in Melbourne.
Athlete?
An athlete. Someone who had played Marvel Stadium before.
Oh, a footballer. Oh,
A footballer.
I do know who it is. It was John O'Brien.
It was Jonathan John
But he didn't
O'Brien.
sing, did he?
No, he didn't sing.
I mean, that'd be amazing.
He brought out a guitar though, but he did not.
Like a guitar tech, like a roadie.
I think it was
And why
Yeah.
John O'Brien? Are they mates?
They are friends now.
That is amazing. Eddie Vedder and Jono. What have they got in common? What are they talking about?
A charity that they are both involved in.
Oh.
So Eddie Vedder, it's some sort of. No, I can't remember the detail. It was like a skin, some sort of like.
Skin condition?
Yeah, a skin
Right.
condition of some kind, and they, the Vedders, I believe, might have even started it or were involved in it very early. And the Australian branch, Jono and his wife, are kind of the ones who are the ambassadors in Australia. So they've met through that.
Because I always thought Eddie's, because he's a surfer, right? So it makes sense he's a mate to like Mick Fanning. And
Yeah.
I had a friend who, his brother is good mates with Tim Robbins. And the last time they were out here, Tim Robbins was in Australia for some reason. And so they got to go backstage. And he said, yeah, like Shane Warne was there, Mick Fanning, like a bunch of people. They're like, oh, that makes sense. But Jono Brown, for some reason, I can't imagine what him and Eddie would like. Do you reckon talking about the 2004 grand final?
I mean, I reckon
you
Eddie,
guys could. I think you guys could have gone for a four-peat.
I reckon Eddie would like sports and be impressed by that. They'd talk about the charity. I think Brownie would get along with most people. I reckon
he's very affable.
He's just got that
kinda-
energy that I think he would fit in reasonably well in whatever circles he was in. So I think he would be okay.
Yeah, I guess they probably interviewed him over the.
Yeah. He's
right.
in the media and stuff as well. So I think that I did hear a story that I went to Cold Chisel as well, speaking of middle age
Oh yeah, how is that?
bands. Amazing. But yeah, so I ran into I won't name them just because in case this story is in any way something I shouldn't be telling, but somebody who I'd run into at Pearl Jam and then I ran into at Cold Chisel.
Okay.
And they were saying that because I'd run into them that night and they were hanging out with Trent Dalton. Do you know who Trent Dalton is? He's the author who wrote Boy Swallows Universe and a whole bunch of things. Incredible. And so I met Trent at Pearl Jam through that, just like, hey, this is my friend Trent. And Trent said that he was a fan of mine, right? Like just in the interaction, the small interaction we had. That's what he said. I later then learnt when I ran into his friend again at Cold Chisel that they had ended up backstage with Eddie Vedder later because Eddie's a big fan of Boy Swallowed Universe and is a fan of Trent's. And so there was a small part of me that was like, should I have latched onto like that earlier on in the night and like, ended up
Coasted
backstage.
away.
Like,
Be best friends with Eddie Vedder.
Yeah, there was. It felt like a small missed opportunity, I will say.
Well, I feel like in your pursuit of Keanu Reeves, Eddie
Yeah.
Vedder is probably.
Would he get me closer or
I think
further
he would.
away?
Oh, I reckon Eddie
Yeah.
Vedder and Keanu would have some.
There'd be a
kind of-
crossover.
There feels like a crossover, don't you think?
Yeah, I feel like that too.
I mean, I don't know if Keanu still surfs, but the music aspect, Dog Star, I feel like there is some. They both seem like nice Hollywood guys,
Yeah.
right? Like guys you can hang with.
Yeah, I think that Eddie Vedder and Keanu Reeves. Yeah, I think that feels like
They'd
if
know
I
each
was like,
other.
oh, my friend Eddie. Actually, I'm friends with Eddie Vedder. No, that doesn't sound right. That's too much.
Do you
isn't
think
it?
that Dave Grohl
Eddie?
Dave Grohl has lost a bit of that kind of status as like the nice guy of rock since the baby mama?
I mean, I think for a short period of time.
But he'll come back and everyone will be like, we love him again.
Most of the women I've talked to, like, you know how like sometimes I love this, but it's like this. If he had behaved, if anyone else had behaved in the way that he had behaved, they would be reasonably
him.
judgmental about it. But in the case of him, they're like, I wish I was the one who was having his baby.
It's also like the rock star thing.
Yeah.
It's like, so you're telling me a
rock
rock
star.
star fuck someone who wasn't
Yeah.
his wife? I mean,
It's
come on.
not the hugest surprise.
No,
to
not
people.
really.
Like, we didn't think it was going to be Dave Grohl who did it, but most women I've spoken to about it seem to be of the opinion that they wish they had been the woman that he'd done it with.
Now, for any of you TOFOP fans out there, I know you've been in suspense for 6 weeks, wondering what we're going to rank next in Crack That
is
Pack.
it Crack That Pack time?
It's Crack That Pack time.
Okay.
We're making our way through the Arnott's assorted creams. We've already reviewed the Kingston, the Delta cream. Now, what should we choose next? I think
Now, obviously, this pack has been sitting here for
Crack that pack.
a new feature of Crack That Pack is the ill-timed theme.
I like it. I'm into it. So what I've noticed here is, so firstly, this is something we didn't talk about.
Thanks to Hugh Tidy, by the way, for the Crack the Pack theme.
6 weeks ago when we last did this segment. But
I think it's Hugh Tidy. I should double check that he was the guy. He normally sends in the themes. Maybe it wasn't. Thanks to whoever made that theme.
so is the
Might cut all of that out.
allotment, like the allocation of biscuits. So there was only 4
Kingstons. Yeah.
Yet there are
Heaps of shortbread creams.
heaps of
You've already
shortbread
eaten
creams. Oh yeah, that was what I ate before when you were
When I slapped your
slapped
hand.
my hands. There are
6 Monte Carlos.
6 Monte Carlos. There are 5 orange creams. There are oh no, we ate 2 of those. Anyway,
6.
all right. So all right.
Yeah,
So what
I
do you want
wonder-
to go next?
Let's go.
Do we want to go shortbread or do you want to go the
Let's go Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo? I think because this
This is my number
you
one.
predicted the Monte
I
Carlo was going to
seeded
be
this
number 1.
number 1.
Okay.
All right, I'll go first.
Well, you go first, and you can tell me whether you think that the Monte Carlo still deserves to be number 1. over the Kingston. Like, I'm getting a lot of nodding from Charlie at this point. It feels like he's pretty confident that he's giving me a thumbs up as well. It's very chewy though.
As good as I remember.
Oh, really?
As good as I remember.
All right.
I think the Monte Carlo, look, it's all relative, right? If you're ranking this against like, a gourmet bespoke bakery that only does biscuits and cookies, then sure, like it's rudimentary. But we're just talking within the world of the Arnott's creams. It's the best one. The biscuit's delicious. It's got the raspberry coating on the filling. It feels the most fancy of all the biscuits. Like it is definitely, if this was in my house as a kid, I'd just be going with the Monte Carlos. My brothers and sisters would be getting annoyed with me because Charlie's eaten all the Monte Carlos. I think it's just a great biscuit. I'm happy to even just have a packet of Monte Carlos, I think. And the name even sounds good. It's a good name. It's not like Delta Cream. Monte Carlo, it's evocative. Oh, shit. Okay.
It's fine.
Mm.
It's fine.
Average. Good ordinary. It's a gob. Good ordinary biscuit.
Look, I can't compare it to every biscuit that's in here, but as you may have noticed, I did take one of the shortbread creams before.
Yeah.
It's ahead of the shortbread cream.
Okay.
I will say that.
Well, this is you seated at number 2.
It's definitely ahead of the Delta cream.
Okay. So it sounds like it's as you predicted.
And so the orange cream is probably not going to, I said the orange cream was third, I think. So it feels like it's probably still going to keep its place at number 2. But for me, there was a substantial drop off. If we had the Kingstons and the Monte Carlos side by side, I would be going back to the Kingstons over and over.
You know what? I agree. I think it's actually, if this is Federer,
Yeah.
then the Kingston's Nadal. That's really just a flip of the coin.
Interesting.
Like they've played many Grand Slams together, and I'm happy for both of them when either wins. I think they're both legendary. Legendary biscuits. I'm going to put the Monte Carlo first, just because the point of difference with the raspberry icing, and I just think it's not as sweet as the Kingston. So it's I give it, in the context of the Arnott's creams, I give it an A. And I sit at number 1. It maintains number 1 status for me.
Yeah, number 2 for me, and I'm going to give this like a C.
Holy shit!
C. So
Didn't
C,
you give
C
it
plus?
What did you give Kingston?
A
B plus or B?
A B, I think.
Okay, well now I feel like
Or a
I've,
B
I've,
plus.
I've talked up the
Maybe a B
Now I
plus.
feel like I need to
A B or a
bring
B
my
plus.
Monte Carlo ranking in more in line with yours. Maybe I'll just say B plus. There are no A's.
You don't need to. You can have your own.
No.
rankings.
Like now now I feel like I'm
You're
too
allowed.
effusive. I'm liking it too much.
Okay, you're allowed to.
All right.
I mean, it's still good.
A minus B plus.
Okay.
I'll sit it in that category. Hey Mike, how did you go with that Google transcript?
Yeah, I've got it here. Why don't we tease it for the next episode, and you can wrap up now.
Okay. We'll tease
Okay.
it for the next
All right.
episode.
Does that
So we'll
work?
wrap up now.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh God, I even forgot we were going to get to mailbag, but next episode will be transcript
You know what?
and empty a mailbag.
We'll do transcript and mailbag next episode.
Yeah, that's a good tease.
That's a tease.
I was going to say, is there anything you want to promote, but we don't know what's going on. 6 weeks in the
Comedy.com.au.
future.
I've got a huge tour of
Okay.
stand-up comedy. It's my improvised comedy show. What You Talking About, Will? I'm touring it all over Australia. Smaller venues, fewer tickets than usual on sale, so getting quick.
And why not subscribe to our Patreon? Heaps of bonus content there. Monthly bonus episodes of TOFOP. There's the Friday night live stream that I've been doing. A bunch of other great stuff. Huge archive of material to go back through if you're enjoying the show. That's patreon.com/everyonerelax. And that's TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.